Welcome to my channel, and I'm back with you once again with another video of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Nowadays I'm exploring the Captain SIM Boeing 777-300ER, and in this regard I'm just making some videos in order to break up all the aspects related to the flight, which includes configuration of the FMC, the startup procedures, flying the plane on autopilot, descent management, ILS approach and landing, and stuff like this. I'm just breaking up all this information in different videos so that if somebody is looking for a specific information over the internet or on YouTube, they can find this information. For this plane, I also have tutorials in a complete video of almost 1 hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. You can just go and watch those videos if you want to watch a complete video. In this video, I will focus on the startup procedures. Before this, I've made 2 other videos in which includes how to configure the FMC or the flight management computer, and introduction to the cockpit lights, how to interact with the cockpit lights. Now in this tutorial, I will totally focus on the startup procedures. But before I begin, I would just like to give you an introduction of the cockpit, as I keep this thing in my mind that the beginners will be watching this video. So I try to keep things very basic and to the point so that it's easy for you to grasp it. You can make your life easy by following the built-in checklist. If you simply go here, you can just follow this checklist and then you can start the plane. Otherwise, you can also follow the steps I give to you in this video and you can just follow them to start up the plane. Right now, I'm parked at Heathrow International Airport. I will be doing a flight to Frankfurt. And before I begin, I would just like to give you an introduction of different parts of the cockpit, because for the startup procedures, really need to know different parts of the cockpit. The front panel over here, as you see, this is known as the mode control panel or the MCP. It's got control for the autopilot and the auto throttle. You can adjust the speed, the heading, and plus the altitude, and also the vertical speed for the climb and descent of the plane. There are 2 other parts on the left and on the right hand side. This part is known as the EFIS, or the Electronic Flight Instrument System, with the help of which you can interact with the type of information being displayed on the navigation display. Either you can have your information related to the ILS. Once you are landing on ILS, it will just show you your alignment with the runway. Then if you're doing a VOR navigation, which is a very high frequency omnidirectional radio, if you're doing that frequency, you can just track your flight over here. Or if you want to do the GPS, the regular flight following, you will use map and flight plan to check the flight plan. And with the help of this, you will be able to zoom in and zoom out of the navigation display. Over here, you adjust the barometric pressure in order to adjust the altimeter. This is what I will explain it to you in this video. And what else? So let me just bring back the throttle, because I was doing a flight, that's why it was full. Okay, and this is the lever for the speed brakes. You can pull it all the way back in order to activate the speed brakes. And this is the lever for the flaps. For the plane, flaps are basically an extension to the wing, which makes a wing bigger, and they provide lift to the plane, not only lift but also drag during the landing. Okay, and what else? You have the upper panel. On the upper panel, you have access to the power systems of the plane. You can turn on and off the engine, the anti-ice option, and the lights, for the exterior lights for the plane, plus the bleed air, which is actually an air used to start up the engines, and your air conditioning, although you cannot interact with these buttons, but packs, as you can see it over here, window heats, and stuff like this. So these are the parts of the cockpit. This is actually known as the electronic flight bag, or the tab, on which the pilots can adjust the fuel, the weight of the plane, get the takeoff performance calculations, and the landing performance calculations and stuff like this. But in this version of the plane, this is not working. Anything else? Nothing else. Okay. So these are the parts. And before I begin again, the second time, I would just like to tell you another basic thing, which is to understand different power systems for the plane. There are 4 different power systems for the plane. One is battery. Another one is your external power. The third one is APU. And the fourth one is this power source from your engines. So once you are on the ground and the plane is in the cold and dark state, which you can see right now, it's cold and dark state, you can just press the battery button and you can have some initial power in the plane, with the help of which you can do some radio communication and stuff like that. But obviously, you cannot fly on that, and you cannot start the engine simply on battery. You need more power for that. As long as the plane is on the ground, it cannot turn on its engines because then it's harmful for the people on the ground. And obviously, people can get sucked into the engines. So that's why the plane uses the ground power unit, which is also known as the auxiliary power unit. Sorry, the ground power unit is the ground power unit. It's not known as the auxiliary power unit. So it's known as the GPU, and this power is provided by a GPU van. In Microsoft Flight Simulator, you can call for a GPU van by dialing or tuning into this frequency, and you can call for the power supply from here. But right now in this plane, you can already see it's available. Although the GPU van is not connected, but still it says available. You can just connect it. So till the time I'm on the ground, before the startup procedures, I will just keep it on the external power. Once I'm about to start the pushback, then I will convert the power to APU, which is the auxiliary power unit. This is a generator built in the plane, which provides power to the engines to start. That's why we have an APU bleed. APU bleed is an air, which is just like provided to the engines of the plane for the starter, for the combustion process. So that's why you have the APU bleed. It is already set to auto. I think you can just turn it off as well. Or you can set to auto and you can turn it off. But just leave it like this for this plane. Okay, so then I will start the APU, and once the pushback is complete and everything is done, then I will start the engines, and then we will also cut off the power. As soon as we'll move to the next power supply, we will cut off the last one. Obviously, batteries will remain on throughout the flight, but it's just only for the external power for the APU. You turn on the external power on the basis of external power, APU started, and then you turn off the external power. And once you have the engines, you turn off the APU. That's it. So this is something basic. Right now, you can see after turning on everything, the external power, everything is on now. And we can begin with the configuration of the FMC, which is the flight management computer. Right now in the screen, you can see it's showing you 747 because Boeing 777-300ER is actually a modified version of the Boeing 747 for the Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's why it shows you 747. But you can just ignore it right now. For the flight planning part, I've already covered in one of the videos. The tutorial 1 is how to configure the FMC. So that's why I'm not going to go into the details. I'm just going to set the FMC because once you have the power, this is the first thing that you have to do is configure the FMC because it interacts with the flight management guidance system. That's why it's important to enter all this information over here. And I will be going to Frankfurt. That's why I will again put in the origin and EDDF for Frankfurt. That's it. And let's now select the departure runway, 27 right and ET2F. Okay, so the first point will be DVR from L6. So I will quickly enter a flight plan. Just to save time so that I can concentrate on the startup procedures. UL 607 to SPI. And T180 to Unoco. That's it. And for the arrival, 25C. D5 to 6 will be the transition, and Unoco 4A. That's it. Now, if I go here, I can just scroll through the flight plan over here, as I've explained it to you before in the EFIS. So with the help of these controls, you can just cycle through the flight plan to see if there is any discontinuity, any issue in the flight plan. And it seems good, so it's okay. I can go back to plan. Now, this is all done. And with this, now for the performance, first of all, let's set the fuel and everything for the plane. including the cargo and the passengers. So right now what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to set the fuel to 17 tons over here, which is 17,000 kilograms. And total payload will be 300,000. But remember one thing, the main tank 2 should not be empty. It should have fuel in it, because if the main tank 2 is empty, then you will not be able to start the APU. In order to start the APU, you should have fuel in the main tank 2. So even if your fuel calculation from the sim brief is not filling any fuel in the tank 2, you should have some fuel. You can do this by moving the slider. Just keep any amount of the fuel and that'll be okay. And then you can just move the slider in order to have this error gone for the center of gravity, for the CG. And that's it. Reserves for this flight will be roughly 17,000 pounds, and cost index will be 80, as I've explained it to you before. This part is already there, already explained in detail. So that's why I am not explaining these steps in detail. Okay. Flap set to position 10, and that's it. Now I've given all the information to the FMC for a complete flight, and that's it. Now I can start with the rest of the procedures. Now everything will be done over here on the upper panel or the overhead panel, and what is required. You can see the backup generators on, hydraulic on, center 1, center 2. You cannot interact with them, but the primary on, and demand electric, they are all set to auto. They're already set to auto, although they should be in the off state, and then you turn them on. Seatbelt signs are turned on after the fueling is done. And as we are done with the fueling, so that's why I can turn the seatbelt signs on. There are two lights that you have to turn on right now. One is the navigation and another one is the beacon, because these two lights are required. I'll just explain it to you why you use these lights. Let's change the time of the day. Now let's go out of the plane and just have a look at these lights. The beacon is a red light on the top and at the bottom of the plane, which is blinking right now. This is actually an indicator for the ground staff that the plane is about to start its engines. So the ground crew can just clear the area. Okay. And the navigation lights are 3 lights on the plane. One on this right wingtip. As you can see, it's a green light. So if any plane is looking at this plane in the dark, it will know that the plane is going towards the right side. If you see a white light, it means you are looking at the plane from the back. And if you're looking at a red light, it means the plane is going towards the left side. So these 2 lights remain on throughout the flight, including the strobe as well. But strobe we will not activate right now. So let me just change the time back. I think it was 10:40. Okay. So I can just set the time right now. And what else? I can turn on the fuel pumps. Set the NTIs to auto. And then bleeds are on. With this, I can start the APU. Just make sure that there is enough fuel. Enough fuel in the tank 2 to start the APU. And as you can see, we have some fuel over here in the tank 2, which is good. Now I think the APU should start. If the APU is not starting, no need to worry. Just have some fuel in the tank 2, and that's it. With this, I can also set the mode control panel, or arm the auto throttle, and for the takeoff, V2 is 196, so I will enter the speed over here, 196. It's actually the speed the plane tries to achieve after the takeoff, because it is the speed at which the plane can still fly if one engine fails. So you have to enter the speed over here. And then the heading of the runway from which you'll be taking off. It is required if you are flying on the basis of a heading. But right now, for this flight, I will be using VNAV. I will not be using the heading mode to fly the plane, but it will be covered once I'm at the point where I'm trying to make a video for the autopilot, how to fly this plane on autopilot, because there are different settings that you can do. You can see many buttons over here. And the flight level change, VNAV, LNAV. For this videos, I will be using LNAV and VNAV. I can turn them on. LNAV is longitudinal navigation, and VNAV is your vertical navigation, or LNAV, the lateral navigation. If you enable LNAV, then once you turn on the autopilot, the autopilot actually, or the flight management guidance system actually follows all the waypoints, the coordinates over here, and it makes sure that the plane follows the flight path. With the VNAV for the vertical navigation, the plane actually sets the speed of the plane and plus the climb and the descent rate. So at different altitudes, there can be different speed constraints. Let's say below 10,000, you cannot go more than 250 knots, so it will be below 250 knots if there is any constraint for the altitude in the flight plan. Let's say at this point, the plane DT, I think, your plane should not be more than 6,000 feet. So even if you enter 10,000 or 36,000 over here, the plane will restrict itself to 6,000 to follow the altitude as per the flight plan entered over here. So that's why we turn on the VNAV. And that's it. This is it. Now you can see as the APU is on, the APU gen on is coming. So at this point, even if I let's check everything is good. Yeah, that's it. It's a simple plane because most of the features are disabled. So that's why I'm not going into details. Only these fuel pumps are coming. There are some preliminary pre-flight checks. I have also jumped them because there's no need to do it because you cannot interact with most of the things. So I'm just trying to keep it simple. Now, keeping in mind that the beginners will be watching this video, that's why. With this, we can disconnect the external power, and you will see the plane will still have the power because the APU is now running. Let me just show you one thing. At the back of the plane, you can see this is the APU exhaust. This one. So APU is at the back of the plane, and that's how it works. Okay, now everything is now done. We have armed auto throttle and everything. Now it's time to call for the pushback and release the parking brakes. The beacon and the nav lights are on. At this time, you can turn on the logo light. It's actually at the tail, not really required in the night. In the morning, sorry, required in the night. But you can turn it on. I asked one of the pilots, why do we even turn on these lights in the night, in the morning? Because the visibility is good. So according to the pilot, it's actually a general practice and just to ensure that, this is all done. Even it's night, it's afternoon, it's evening, it's night, you turn on the lights, or even in the morning. And plus, even if you have got bright lights on the taxiway or on the runways or in the sky, the planes from distance can identify you. If you do flights in Microsoft Flight Simulator with the traffic on, you will see that even in the morning you will see blinking lights, which gives you a good indication that there is a plane in the vicinity. So that's why you turn on all the lights, okay? And I'm not going to turn on all these lights right now because if you're parked at the gate, you don't want to turn them on because the lights are on the nose wheel, and it can be harmful for the eyes of the people on the ground. So that's why after the pushback is complete, you then turn on these lights. Okay. So now with this, I can call for the pushback. And I can release the brakes. Okay, now in the meanwhile, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go back to clearance. I'm going to dial into the ATIS or tune into ATIS. I don't know why I'm saying dial into. I tune into. I think I push by. I cannot. Yeah, now the ATIS. So the pushback tug is there. Okay, great. I just wanted to get this barometric pressure. Okay, great. I can change the radio frequency just to get rid of this ATIS, and then I can call for the pushback to stop. So 29.902, and this is already there. Otherwise, you would have moved this dial in order to set the barometric pressure, as the plane bias its altitude based on the barometric pressure. So that's why you have to adjust the barometric pressure in order to adjust the altimeter. Now I can I right now? Let's do it. The pushback in the Microsoft Flight Simulator is not that really accurate. But anyhow, I'm just trying to spend my days with it. Thank you very much. I actually avoid using additional plugins because at times you never know which plugin fails and makes your life miserable for the flight simulation, because I only get a very short time to make videos and I don't have time to actually fix the issues with the Microsoft Flight Simulator. So now the pushback has ended. I can engage the parking brake, get rid of this warning sign. Let's go out and see. It's okay. I give myself 8 out of 10. Okay, now it's time to turn on the engines. We have the switch to turn on the engine. You simply move it to start. You first of all start with the right engine. That's the engine number 2. And let's see, everything is looking good. So now I can turn on this fuel selector for engine 2 or for the right engine, and we can just go out and see whether the engine is running or not. And you can see this engine is now in action. So engine 2 is now up. Rather, looking at the pushback performance, I think I should give myself 9 out of 10 for this kind of pushback. I just make myself happy by doing these things. Okay, then I can just turn on the engine 1 as well and wait for the engines to stabilize. Once these numbers, these digits over here, for the exhaust gas temperature and for the N1 it's stabilized, then we can continue further with the starter procedures. Okay, and over here we have to set the flaps to position 15. You can set it to 5 or 10, 5 or 15. Got the clearance? I think it's turned on. Let me turn it off. Okay, let me just acknowledge it, and that's it. Let me just change the frequency so that there is no radio communication. Okay, now as you can see, the exhaust gas temperature for the engine is stabilized at 471 degrees and N1 is stabilized at 23.2. Now we can start off. We can continue with the taxi. And with this, what I can do is this. I can turn off the APU because I don't need it any longer, because now we have power. With this, I can turn on the lights. These are basically the lights. This is to look at the left, the light on the left. This is on the right, and this is on the nose. If I change the time, can I show you the lights? Yes, I can show you the lights. If I just go out, you can see left, right, and the center. So now the pilot can look at the left, right, and center. Another light, runway turn-off lights, you can also turn them on. If you just go out, and you'll see more lights for the left and right. Okay, that's it. And with this, I can turn on the taxi lights. Taxi light is also on. If I turn off these lights, what will happen? Let me just show you. So this is the taxi light again, and the landing lights add more light to it. You have to turn them on. As I told you before, I had some discussions with some of the pilots, and that's what they told me. It's good exercise to have these lights on. And with this, I can also turn on the wing lights. Okay. As soon as you are above 10,000 feet, you will then turn off all the lights except for beacon, nav, and strobe. Right now, I'm not turning on the strobe, but if you turn on the strobe, and there will be a strobe light on the wings. This is actually required after the takeoff. So not required on the runway or on the taxiway. So in the Airbus, there is a setting. You set the strobe to auto as soon as the plane lifts off from the runway. The strobes are on, and as soon as the plane lands, the strobes are off. So in this flight, what I'm going to do is this. As soon as I'm holding short of the runway 27 right, I will then turn on the strobe, and then I can continue with the flight. So that's an introduction of the lights. And plus for the cockpit lights, as you can see, there are no cockpit lights. Although the back lights are on for all the instruments, but no floodlight given. You cannot turn it on or off. It's a very simple thing. Simply press spacebar L, and once again, because it turns off all the lights, and once again, and all the lights are on. So this is a shortcut or a technique in this plane. As you can see, all the external lights are also on. You can also use Control L to turn on and off the external lights. Okay. So right now you can see all the lights are on, and this is the dome. A dome is required on the ground. Once you're interacting with the ground staff, if after the pushback you don't need it, you can always turn it off. Otherwise, if you need some brightness in the cockpit, then you can keep it on. Over here on the map, you need some light for the co-pilot and for the captain. You can do it. Otherwise, it's totally up to you. And that's it. There is also a video on my channel in which I've explained it to you, lights for this plane. Now everything is looking good so far. All you have to do is this. Set the auto brake to RTO. Let me bring back the time to morning. I've tried making some videos in the morning, in the night, but people complain that, the brightness is too low. So I then just stopped making videos in the night. Okay. These are basically the auto brakes in case of rejected takeoff, and the rejected takeoff will be under the speed, under V1. After V1, if you have crossed V1, then you have to take off. Let me just go to takeoff. You can see. So before 160 knots, you can decide to stop. Otherwise, it will be dangerous to stop the plane if you cross 160 knots. Then you have to take off, achieve 196 knots, turn back, and then land again, get the clearance for the landing. Otherwise, below 60, you can stop. And once you try to abort the takeoff, then the auto brakes come into action. RTO is rejected takeoff brakes. So auto brakes are automatically applied to stop the plane. That's it. You arm the speed brakes because once you are trying to abort the takeoff, you might activate the reverse thrust, and as soon as the reverse thrust is activated, the speed brakes will be activated. Speed brakes are actually flaps on the wings. I'll just show you. These are the wings. These are also known as the spoilers, which reduce the speed. Okay, so that's it. So that's why you arm them, and as soon as you take off, then you disarm the speed brakes by moving it forward. That's it. Okay, now I can set it over here. So if you look at the cockpit, everything is looking good. I think I've explained everything. These are the controllers for the Viper. If it's raining, you can interact with the Vipers, and nothing else. Yes, window heat, just turn it on because you don't want any fogging on the windows. Once you're at a higher altitude, then there might be fogging. APU is off, and APU bleed, just keep it auto, and engine bleeds are also on, air conditioning on, packs on, everything is now complete. That's it. If you want to learn more about the startup procedures for 777, if you want to know more about these buttons, then I would suggest you to look at the 787 startup procedures. 787's overhead panel and the 777's overhead panel, they almost match. They almost have the same number of buttons, the same layout, and the same controls and the same logic. So there is a 787 in the Microsoft Flight Simulator, which comes with the Microsoft Flight Simulator. You can just go and watch those videos if you want to learn more about these buttons. But still, this is it. It's a simple startup procedure for this plane, nothing really complicated. And I think I've explained everything. If you still have got any questions, you can ask me in the comments section. And if you want to add anything to this video, the comment section is there for you. At times, there is a delay from my side. Kindly excuse me for that, for responding to your comments. With this, I would just like to end my video. Thank you very much for staying with me. Have a nice day. Hope to see you soon.